Okay, we're going to get started. The next three speakers will be Jose Torres, William Wilcox, and Crystal Wolf. Jose Torres. Good evening, Mr. Torres. Hold on, we think we need to get your mic on.
My name is Jose Torres, and I am a coordinator with an agency that works half a block down from here. And we see in real time I think the conversations that the tenants and even to some extent the landlords are having about the impact that the decisions like agencies like the Rent Guideline Board makes on a daily basis. We provide legal information to individuals who come in through our storefront, and part of it is to try to educate them on their civil rights and their capacities to access the court and be able to engage on this level, but also to give them some kind of resources and allocate them and point them in the right direction. And
is this for, excuse me, but is this for housing court?
It's for housing court, family court, and the surrounding auxiliary issues that a person deals with in a community like Jamaica, which is access to affordable housing, access to government benefits, to be able to sustain themselves with the current market pressures. But I think that there's something fundamentally flawed in the premise that housing as a concept should be left to market forces. I mean, housing is a fundamental human right. That's a foundation for any individual to be able to access equitable living. And if we treat this and continue to treat this as a discussion based on 2% or 3% increments, not realizing the actual ramifications that this is having on communities like Jamaica or communities across New York City, then I think we're missing the idea. And I'm not going to take a lot of the time, because obviously I think that there's more pressing issues and more people who can actually voice these opinions in real time because the pressures that they feel. But as somebody who sees this and has to actually deal with the consequences of decisions made by boards like yours, I mean, I think it's imperative that one, you do roll back the current rent guidelines, because 1% or 2% increments are not gonna, although in theory they might seem like they're not as impactful, for somebody who's making $1,300 a month and has to pay $1,200 on rent, that's almost unsustainable. And we have to have an actual conversation about what is it that we're doing as a city when we are allowing market forces and market pressures to dictate how we treat our constituents and our members of our community. So I'm not going to take any more of your time. If there are any questions, I'm welcome to answer them. But I think it should be imperative as somebody who actually has to engage and give people answers about the decisions made by boards like you, that you guys listen to what we have to say also as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Torres?
Thank you for testifying. And can you tell, how many tenants your organization sees a year? What are you seeing on the ground around preferential rents and MCIs?
So our actual project is relatively new, it's about a year old in Jamaica, and I would say that about 45 to 50% of the individuals who come into our site come in under the premise of housing issues, right? Whether it's evictions, whether it is issues of how do I read a lease and understand what my preferential rent is as opposed to my legal rent. These type of conversations are the type of things that we have, but more so it's after they're out or they're on the way to being evicted, what resources can we allocate them? There are no longer project-based Section 8 units available for these tenants. There's no longer protections available for them through these subsidies, because landlords are becoming hip to understanding how the rent stabilization laws work and how to circumvent these things. And we're seeing this in real time. And this is something that you guys should be made aware of, because the decision to increase it by 1% it might not seem as much on paper, but in real time it has dramatic impacts on a community like Jamaica, which is already in a transitory state with the redevelopment that's going on.
Can you talk about those impacts, like a 1% increase? What would you see on the ground? What impact would you see?
I mean, we would see, I think, more people coming and asking, where can we find affordable housing? How can we address this? What subsidies are available for me to be able to access capital to be able to pay this 1% increase? We see this on a daily basis.
And how often do there people come in who you just can't help them because their rent is just too high?
That is, I mean, we see on an average about 70 people a week, I would say about 45 of them come in with housing issues, and maybe out of those 45, 25 to 30 of them are like, well, we can't really help you because your rent is too high, you don't have enough capital, and you're about to be evicted or you're facing an eviction, and there's nowhere to point you in the right direction.
Any other questions for Mr. Torres? No, thank you, Mr. Torres.
Fab.
William Wilcox?
Hello, and thank you for your
Good
time.
evening. Thank you.
I'm a tenant in Astoria. I work in homeless services in the Bronx for an agency called Bronx Works, and my girlfriend, who I live with, is a teacher. Having a rent-stabilized apartment has been the difference between continuing to pursue helping people every day at my job and doing something I'm proud of versus working at a bank like many of my friends have chosen to do. This has allowed me to continue to live by my morals, and I think housing is a fundamental human right for which we should stand. A rent freeze is necessary to avoid continuing to pressure tenants to leave this city for more affordable housing opportunities in other parts of the country. I used to work in the home-based program, which is a DHS-funded eviction prevention program in the Bronx. I saw many times where $50 a month could be the difference between someone entering housing court and being evicted from their home and not. 1 or 2% doesn't seem like that much when you have a good deal of spending money. But I met a single mother who spent 90% of her free income on her rent. And she fell into rental arrears every time her sickle cell anemia acted up. That's the kind of person that enters the shelter system and costs the city significantly more money at the expense of a 1 or 2% rent increase. A rent freeze is necessary to continue to preserve the housing rights of the vulnerable people that exist across this city and of all tenants. And this is a city that should look out for tenants and for our citizens instead of feeding more money into a landlord's pocket. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see if there are any questions. Any questions for Mr. Wilcox?
So can I ask you just to tell us a little more about that? You worked at a DHS site. How many people did you see? How long you were there? What were the experiences of the people who were going through the shelter system?
So I worked at home base for about a year. I've been at Bronx Works for 2 years now. I've since moved into a grant writing program management position. We do about 40 intakes a day across 2 sites. See a few thousand people a year. You see many people who are vulnerable, who are pressured by having low-income jobs, who really work hard to stay out of the shelter system, which many of them have entered before. Shelter entry is the highest predictor of, again, shelter entry. So people move out, move out with FEPS, City FEPS, Link, but then the rent keeps increasing, but the amounts of city subsidies do not. People are forced into a position where they have to pay more money than they ever could have been budgeted for. For example, the FEPS program would provide $750 a month, but your rent could be $900 a month. You then had to come up with, but you were on full public assistance and had no way of accruing more income. That extra $150 a month came from some magical place that the city government expected to find it.
Did you see what stories like major capital improvements, large increases or preferential rents?
And you can see regularly in the housing court system how preferential rents are used against tenants as a way to punish them, bringing tenants to court. Anytime you've fallen behind in rent arrears, your next increase will go up right to the legal limit in order to evict you and more quickly push you out of the housing so they can get that 20% rent increase.
Quiet, please.
You can see how the MCIs are regularly used in what is somewhat clearly fraudulent manner across the system to charge people more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, our hearing is going on. Please be quiet. Crystal Wolf. Thank you. Ms. Wolf.
Hi, I'm Crystal Wolf. I came to New York City about 2.5 years ago with a lot of goals in mind. I had a job set up at a newspaper and an apartment lined up. When I got here, I lost the job. They said that they gave the position to someone else, so I lost the apartment, and I scrambled to get a job in an apartment as soon as I could. And for 2.5 years, I've struggled to survive here. I've applied to over 3,000 jobs. I've had like 20 jobs. I would work 3 or 4 jobs at a time. One of the jobs I had was as a reporter, and I was not paid for that job because there are a lot of positions in New York, like it wasn't even an internship, but a lot of internships are not paid for a year. Even though I've already been published in many newspapers throughout the country, I was not paid. But I continued to work at that job thinking it would be a catalyst to get it.
Excuse me, just 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the point is, I've had a lot of different jobs here, and I've struggled to survive, and I'm still struggling to survive, but I'm also helping the homeless. I started a nonprofit called Catering for the Homeless, and I'm feeding the homeless through that. I won't get into it. But your board has the power to really make a difference for New York City because this is the most expensive city to live in, and so many people are homeless here. It is an epidemic, and there's a lot of others on the brink of that. 70% of homeless are families, and if you do rollbacks or freeze the rents, that will help prevent homelessness, and we're desperate for help to do that. So that is what I'm asking for, and you have the power to really affect change. Everyone agrees that we need affordable housing here. Rents have not been rolled back in like 35 years. So I'm asking you for the sake of millions of people that are struggling to survive and at least 66,000 that are homeless to please do rollbacks. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to those who just joined us. If you wish to speak, be sure to sign up outside in the entranceway to the auditorium. In order to speak, you have to sign up.
Bienvenidos a los que acaban de llegar. Les recuerdo que si quieren dar su testimonio tienen que inscribirse en la mesa de entrada.
Thank you.
And can you also just let everyone know that if they want to sign up to getting announcements about these hearings coming up, they can sign up for emails at the front, and the Rent Guidelines Board will help get them information about future hearings.
Y también pueden apuntarse en la misma mesa de entrada para recibir correos electrónicos que anuncian las futuras audiencias de la Junta Reguladora.
Thank you. We have some people who are signing up right now, so just be patient. We're just waiting to get their names so we can call everybody who has signed up to speak.
Should we get somebody to go get some, okay. Oh, okay. There's Brian right there. Oh, he's got, all right, he's got the papers, okay. Okay.
Okay, we're ready to proceed. I'm going to read out 3 names. That will be the order in which we'll hear the speakers. The first speaker will be Regina Shanley. The second speaker will be Keisha Clark, and Caitlin Shan. So first, Regina Shanley.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening. Let me just remind you, you have 2 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you for coming to Queens. My name's Regina Shanley. I'm a tenant at Phipps Garden Apartments in Sunnyside, New York, where I've lived for almost 40 years. Most people, a lot of people, when they hear rent stabilized, think of the occasional stories of a 90-year-old living in a 5-bedroom apartment paying $72 a month. That just doesn't happen anymore. People, even in apartments, can't afford rent anymore. I live in a stabilized complex. A family I know with an adorable 18-month-old and a 7-month pregnant wife were evicted because they couldn't pay their rent. Another family with 3 teenagers, 2 girls and a boy, could no longer afford the very small 1-bedroom they had, as well as trying to move into the 2-bedroom they needed. The rents are too high for people. I know people who are not buying prescription medicine like asthma inhalers, which are absolute lifesavers occasionally, or they're taking half their prescription medicine because they can't afford refills. Personally, I'm on DRE, and I got a big, huge $3 a month increase on Social Security. For the first increase in 3 years. I can pay my rent, but it's more than 50% of my income, even with DRE and the other thing. The cost of rent is increasing faster than Social Security or incomes. People just can't afford to pay it anymore. The rent-stabilized buildings used to be the mainstay of affordable housing. We have to keep it that way by having a rent rollback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask you just a quick question just about your building? You mentioned that there were other tenants who were no longer able to live there. Is your building seeing any major capital improvements in the building? Have you seen other rent increases? If you can do that at the microphone, that would be really helpful.
Yes, there have been a number of MCIs, and of course they last forever, and there's another one because they are putting on roofing because so many lines have leaks and mold, and they just paint over the mold as it is, scrape and paint. And one line, a friend of mine had to throw out a lot of her clothing because of the mold in her closet. They scraped and painted and said, oh, the whole line has mold. So, yeah, they'll fix it, but then they'll give another MCI. One time they gave an MCI to 2 buildings, and the next time it rains, 3 lines had leaks, the whole 6 floors into the lobby. So yes, MCIs are there.
Thank you. Keisha Clark.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Clark.
I'm going through a similar situation right now. I've been in the doctor all day because of mold taking up all my apartment, and they just paint over it. They're not fixing the problem. I have asthma. My son has asthma. We end up with pneumonia.
We need you to speak a little closer to the microphone, please.
I'm going through the same problem. I have asthma, my son has asthma. They only paint over there. They be trying to fix it, but they're not going the deep root of it. Now I had to go to court, now they're trying to fix what the problem. I was in the doctor all day today because I can't breathe. I'm missing a lot of their work. They're taking me to court, missing a lot of pay, but I still have to pay them. But everything is beautiful outside, but what about inside? You can't take a proper shower. They took over the building in June. In October to the 3rd week of January, there was no heat at all. They said they'd be fixing it. I was pregnant. I had a miscarriage because I was a big person. I have to bathe in a bucket of hot water with pneumonia, and I had a miscarriage. You're going to collect money when you're only fixing outside to collect pay when nothing is done inside the apartment. They have people that living in my building, and if they had money to move, they would have moved. Across from me is 8 person living in a 1-bedroom apartment. 8 person. The other part is 5 person. If you check how many people live in a bedroom apartment, there's so many people living cannot afford it. I would have moved already if I had the money to move, because there's no way to live and have a child growing up. I'm missing work, he's missing school because it's mold infested. It take up all over my clothes, and I show them, and I had no reimbursement. But they try to sue me for rental arrears, which they said I'm supposed to pay more money from 2008 when they just bought the apartment in June last year, and it's taking me to court to sue me to collect like they want to pay more money. But no, they have to fix the place, and I show them mold is everywhere. Why you fix outside when we need inside to fix, to collect more money? That's not fair. If you want to charge us more, do the right thing. You can't just want to fix outside and everybody move inside, and then you're not taking care of the tenant. Then we need hot water. We need everything to be fixed inside. We need heat in summer. Why am I going to pay heat inside a light bill with a heater? You know how dangerous it is to have a heater inside a bathroom taking shower because we're freezing. With a small child, I got to have a heater standing and watching my child because it's not right. We need better living.
Okay, your time is up. Are there any questions for Ms. Clark? No. Thank you, Ms. Clark. Caitlin Shan.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Shan. I'm an organizer and tenant hotline volunteer with the Met Council on Housing. I live in Ridgewood in a rent-stabilized apartment. I've been there for 7 years. My landlord is not a slumlord. He is not a bad person, but he is financially well off. A typical apartment in my building has only one bedroom with multiple generations of a family living in it. For example, my neighbors across the hall sleep on the pull-out couch so that their 15-year-old daughter has her own bedroom. The family, like many in my building, this family has been exploited through the preferential rent scam for years. Every year, at every renewal, they come to us with such anxiety about their rent increases. And what they don't realize is the whole time, behind the scenes, their legal rent has been skyrocketing. They literally don't have any idea. And this is because of the decisions made by this board. We keep hearing, you've had 2 rent freezes. Well, what about 2-year leases that preferential rent people like myself sign because we're nervous about the next year? What about those increases? We've seen 7.75 in 2014. Before that, 7.25, 6%, 8.5%. This is literally hundreds and hundreds of dollars added to the legal rent, and so many of us don't even know. So when my neighbor's preferential rent gets revoked, which will happen, they will get evicted. My landlord, however, will get a 20% vacancy bonus. He'll get 15% plus because they've been in that apartment for so many years. On top of that, he'll do an individual apartment improvement. He'll get that bonus on his rent, and poof, that apartment is gone from our rent-regulated stock. This is a problem. So when you, on this board, look back in history at this time, I want to ask you, did you help people stay in their homes? Did you prevent my 15-year-old neighbor from becoming homeless? Or did you put money in my landlord's pocket to pay off his Porsche? That's what I want to know.
Let me announce the next speakers, please. Abella Espinal, Lesbia Mendez, and Judith Bernard will be the next speakers, and we'll start with Abella Espinal.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Abella Espinal.
Good evening.
Buenas tardes. Yo viví en mi apartamento por 23 años. Me sacaron porque tenía una lavadora y secadora. Había una lavandería en el basement. Solo eran 5 lavadoras, 5 secadoras para 90 apartamentos.
Good evening. I lived in my apartment for 23 years. I was evicted because I had a washing machine in my apartment. Now, the building had a laundry room in the basement, but it only had 5 washers and 5 dryers for 90 units.
Por 20 años nunca me pintaron el apartamento. Pagaba $1,180. Ahora pago $2,300.
So, for 20 years, they never painted my apartment. I used to pay $1,180 in rent. Now I have to pay $2,300.
sufrió mucho la pérdida del apartamento. Y yo también.
My 15-year-old son suffered very much when we lost our apartment, and I did as well.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Mendez.
Señora Méndez, señora Méndez.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Lesbia Mendez. I'm here with Catholic Migration Services. We thank this board for allowing us to present you with some other reasons why rent should not continue to go up. Not only for me, but for thousands of tenants that are making great sacrifices to pay their rent. This is the third time, so some of you may know me. So here I am once more. Let me begin with some of my reasons to be in your presence. I am retired on a fixed income. When I say fixed income, let me explain. For 2015 and 2016, Social Security gave us retirees no increase because they said there was not cost of living increase. In 1917, they gave us 0.3%. Can anybody tell me how much is that? I haven't seen it in my check. Ladies and gentlemen, no cost of living increase, it is a joke. How about my rent every 2 years, whether there is a cost to increase or not? My electric bills, groceries, medical bills. How about MCIs? I am paying for an elevator $27 that were added to my rent. Why? Initially, they gave us the cost of that elevator and so many years to pay. And suddenly, the MCIs were added to my rent. I will pay for that elevator forever. I am not living on a co-op. Remember, I'm not living in a co-op or condo. I don't own shares of that building. I work very hard, even after my retirement years, trying to not to become a public burden. I never thought that I may need to use public benefits such as SCREE. I don't qualify yet, but I guess that I may in a near future if my rent continues to increase every 2 years.
Excuse me, your time is up. Could you wrap up your comments, please?
Yes, I will quickly. I hope in your deliberations you take into consideration the pleas of so many tenants, retirees like myself, very low-income tenants that are underpaid less than $15 an hour, that are struggling, worried that they may end homeless under a bridge with no hope for a better living. There are so many in our city. Ladies and gentlemen of this board, help us please. Stop. I again end like last year, to stop the greed that have taken over our beloved city.
Thank you. Judith Bernard. Judith Bernard. Great.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Judith Bernard, and I live in Lafayette City. I'm from the Catholic Migration Services. My speech is very short and precise. The rent is exorbitant. When I started living in Lafayette, my rent was like $300 and change. Now, my rent gone up to $2,000 a month. We have to pay. Why is the MCI? What are they doing for us? When there are renovations, the tenants has to pay. We have rats, we have cockroaches, all running around. They're sharing the apartment with us. Why is the increase? Why don't we have a decrease instead of increase? Each and every tenant in here needs your support, and we appreciate that, and I will not take up much more of your time. It's just short and to the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Ms. Bernard, there's a question. Could you come back to the microphone? There's a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to, that huge increase, can you talk about what happened, like with the major capital improvements that the owner applied for, and what, what are people doing in your building, how are they surviving with that, such a huge increase?
Yes, years ago, we had a couple of incidents, fatal accidents with the elevators. We had to pay to have the elevators replaced. There has been improvement around Lefrak. We are supporting Lefrak City. Why? Okay, it's just unbelievable. The building from which I live in is inconveniencing for the senior citizen, including one like me, I just retired, to come up the stairs is a burden. Why didn't we have a walk down instead of climbing the stairs? This is on behalf of all senior citizens that lives in Lefrak in Section 1. We're paying Lefrak. We are supporting Lefrak. We need your help. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the next three speakers will be Miley Wang, Violetta Yu, and Sally Wang. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our concerns. I like to refer to myself as a small property owner, as the word landlord seems to invoke an image of a distant, rich property developer who cares little about return, who cares only about...
Could you just speak more closely into the microphone? Thank you.
Sure. The word landlord invokes an image of a distant, rich property developer who cares only about returns on investment results. This is neither me nor many of the other small property owners that I am familiar with. Most of us live right on or near our buildings and live with our tenants for many decades and manage our property on our own. To us, it is home. After 2 years of 0% increase, whatever savings we've made through the years of sacrifice have dwindled to none. Like many New Yorkers, our property survives day to day. I know Mayor de Blasio owns properties in Brooklyn and rent them out to tenants. I wondered if he too subjected himself to 2 years of 0% increase. If he did, then he would understand my dilemma. I can tell you this is very stressful to no longer have money in reserve to pay for the many things that can happen to my building. Most rent-stabilized buildings are in older buildings in New York. Many unexpected repairs occur. You can fix one thing and another thing breaks. For the last year, my repairs have been patches, This is not the way things should be done, but this is what I can afford. I don't want to manage my building this way. It's not fair for me, nor is it fair for my tenants. I ask you to consider this when you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Violetta, you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you can see, I'm not a young person anymore. 3 years ago, when I reached my retirable age, I wanted to retire. But with the rent and everything, I did not. But now, when we had a meeting at the Catholic Migration Center, we were informed about, above all things, that our rent increase might be between 1, 2, or 3 or 4%. Back then, 3 years ago, if I remember it correctly, the 2-year renewal was, I think, 3%. And I think the 1 year was 1%, or there was a year when it was 0% increase. If back then, 3 years ago, I could not afford to retire because of just the rent alone, the benefit, the SSS benefits that I would be receiving monthly was very low compared to the rent. The benefits alone is not even enough to cover my rent. How much more if the increase you will approve between 2, 3, or 4%? Please help us. If they really need an increase, I think 1% would be the reasonable and affordable for us senior citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally Wang.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The burden on small property owners have been extremely difficult for the past several years. The increasing volume of new laws and regulations, higher insurance, building material costs, property tax, and heating costs have placed an untenable burden on small property owners. I feel that the small property owners are the forgotten ones, as we are small in number and dollars. My family owns one 6-family building in which we all pitch in to clean, fix, and address emergency problems. We do not have the luxury or funds to hire a superintendent to maintain the building. We do everything that a super would normally do. I ask that before you vote to keep us in mind and provide us with a rate that both tenant and property owners deem fair. These increases help us maintain and sustain our buildings. I talk with other property owners who feel that the rate approved in the last 2 years makes them seriously think about selling their buildings. And there are many large developers and property owners who will want to buy blocks of buildings in our area. The number of mom and pop property owners are shrinking and becoming extinct. I ask that as you listen to our testimony, that you vote not according to which group hollers the loudest, but based on the rate that property owners can survive on. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my testimony.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can I ask you a couple quick questions? Can I ask you, you said you own one building that's 6 units? That's the only apartment building you own?
Yes, my family, yes.
Your family?
My mom and dad.
Say that again?
My mom and dad.
Your mom and dad, they own one building and 6 units. And do your family live in that building?
My family does not live in that.
And so you have 6 rent-stabilized tenants or are non-rent regulated units in the building?
No, since 6 rent stabilized.
They're also all rent-stabilized?
Correct, yes.
And then you mentioned that you got 0% increases. That means for the last 2 years, everyone's only signed 1-year leases?
We have tenants that signed just 1 year, yes.
No one signed a 2-year lease?
No.
And then your income and your expenses, I know you mentioned that. You're saying that you don't have enough income. How's your income versus expenses for the building?
It's pretty much flat.
Pretty much flat. So like the story that tenants have been telling all night long about 90% of their income going towards rent, you're in some ways experiencing their struggles in the same way.
Oh, definitely. We're all in the same boat. In my eyes, tenants and small property owners. There are large property owners that could hire superintendents, lawyers, and do everything. But small property owners, which, a lot of people don't hear because, a lot of people don't come and give testimony. We're kind of like all in the same boat. We're struggling. 0% increase is hard for us. 5% increase, 6% is hard for tenants. So, we know both sides.
So do you ever get MCIs for your building, major capital improvements?
No.
So do you see that the rules maybe should be different for a small property owner like you versus large property owners like we're hearing about, like Rack City or Zara, these large companies that are, what these tenants are struggling with? Do you think that we should create different rules for different types of owners?
I was thinking that tonight too, that maybe there should be some structure like that where small property owners, are treated a little bit differently, because it is a big problem where if you compare us to large property owners, we just don't have the dollars to sustain increases that are, either very low for us. A lot of us operate on a margin that's very, very close. And like I said, we actually do many of the things ourselves, snaking, toilets, we don't call a plumber, we snake it ourselves. Things like a sink socked up, we don't call a plumber, we do it ourselves.
So that owner who could get like MCIs and other increases, they have other opportunities that maybe a small property owner like yourself might not have.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next 3 speakers will be Julio Cuevas, Rosabel Vicente, and Gina Vargas. So first, Julio Cuevas.
Hello. Sí. Ya. ¿Empiezo? Sí, con esto. No. Allá en Julio Cueva, Perú. Me he trasladado a tres viviendas aquí en Nueva York. Me fui hasta Osumpar a ver si podía ahorrar algo, pero me asaltaron por allá y me tuve que volver de nuevo aquí por Queen, por donde vivo. Y en realidad estoy trabajando para pagar la renta, que no me alcanza. Yo soy, ya tengo mi edad y me apoya mi señora, mis hijos están trabajando.
So hello, I'm Julio Cuevas. I've had to move 3 times in New York City recently. I recently tried to see if I could find rent in Ozone Park to find something that I could save rent on, but when I went out there I was actually held up. I was assaulted and I had to come back to my neighborhood. I worked very hard to make money to pay rent, but I'm not that young anymore, and it's not enough. My wife works to help me, as do my children.
Y la renta no me incrementan 30 ni $40. Me aumentan de 100, 200, 300 dólares por año, y veo que no me alcanza. Creo que voy a trabajar solamente para renta.
And my rent increases aren't 30 or 40%. In fact, my rent's been going up 100, 200, $300 a year. And I see that, all the money I make working is just not going to be enough.
Y creo que tendré que trabajar ya no 10, 12 horas, o tendré que trabajar 16 horas para pagar mi renta. Y por favor, ¿no? Yo quiero que comprendan a los dueños de los apartamentos, que nos consideren, ¿no? Porque nosotros creo que movemos acá para poder cumplir con ustedes, ¿no? Y tener una familia que viva feliz, no pensando si vamos a comer mañana.
And it's just not enough. I'm going to have to start working more, from 10 to 12 hours a week up to 16 hours a week to be able to pay the rent. And please understand, and I ask that landlords, please take us into consideration. We're the ones who work, we're the ones who make this city move. But right now, we're not making enough to afford the rent.
Es suficiente. Es suficiente. Es suficiente. Oh, okay.
I think we have a question, actually. Ms. Garcia?
Ellos me van a hacer una pregunta.
Una pregunta, ¿cuánto paga usted de renta? How much do you pay in rent?
No, ahora no. Estoy pagando, por ejemplo, yo pagaba $1,820 $1,800. Y yo soy ya prácticamente, en mi retiro solamente me han dado una miseria que no me alcanza, y por eso voy a tener que seguir trabajando para poder cumplir con mi familia.
So I pay $1,820, and I live on a pension, which is very little, and it's just not enough. So I think I'm going to have to just keep working to be able to support my family.
Y usted mencionó ahorita que le habían subido la renta mucho dinero, ¿era porque habían hecho arreglos grandes en el edificio como los MCIs? So you mentioned that they had increased your rents by large amounts, or was it increases because of MCIs?
No, nada, no, vivo como si fuera, más bien, a veces a veces hay fallas, hay agua de segundo piso y a veces no me la arreglan.
No, on the contrary, they haven't done any repairs. As often we have, for instance, leaks, water coming into our apartments, and they don't repair anything.
Any other questions for Mr. Cuevas? No, thank you, Mr. Cuevas.
Gracias. Thank you so much.
Rosibel Vicente?
Rosibel Vicente?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Rosabel Vicente. I'm 18 years old. I live with my parents, my grandfather. We live in a two-bedroom apartment. We pay $1,700, which is as much as my tuition. So currently, I had to settle for a 2-year community college because my parents couldn't afford for me to go to a 4-year. So my parents work at least 12 hours a day to provide for me, my college, like everything for college, and they can barely pay rent. So my question is, like, am I going to be homeless, or am I going to have to stop going to college? And on top of that, we pay for air conditioning, which is $70 to install, plus electricity, which is too much. So I'm either going to have to stop going to school, or we're going to become homeless. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Gina Vargas.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gina Vargas y la situación mía es la siguiente. Yo soy madre, cabeza de hogar, tengo 2 hijas, yo soy la que tengo el cargo de mi casa, respondo por ellas, tengo que pagar renta. Ahorita me sucedió una situación, duré 11 años en un apartamento, fui muy cumplida con mi renta, de un momento a otro el arrendatario me pidió, yo creo que la razón por lo que hace es porque él quiere subir rentas y no me la subió a mí, bueno, él tiene su derecho, pero la cuestión mía es esta: ¿cómo hacemos, qué pueden hacer familias como la mía, donde solamente una persona es la proveedora, donde mujeres como yo tenemos la necesidad de salir y trabajar para llevar el sustento de nuestras hijas?
Excuse me, let's get interpretation, please.
Good evening, my name is Gina Vargas. So this is my situation. I am the head of my household. I'm a single mother with 2 daughters. I lived in my apartment for 11 years, and I was very responsible. I paid my rent on time. I did what I had to do. My landlord, I guess he has a right to, but he wants to raise my rent. So my question is, how can someone like me, who's the head of the household, who's responsible on my own for my family, how can we live with this situation?
Sí, ese es un punto. Yo creo que como todos los que estamos acá reunidos venimos por situaciones y creo que tenemos el derecho a una vivienda digna, pero también a una renta accesible y por sobre todas las cosas justas. Mis hijas y yo estamos sintiendo, esto nos ha afectado, 11 años, ahí crecieron mis niñas y de una u otra manera yo necesito moverme. Fui a un real estate y porque mi crédito no es muy alto, me están cobrando 2 depósitos más la renta y el real estate, $7,200. ¿Quién me puede ayudar?
And I think like all of us here, we come, facing a particular situation. The main point is that we have a right to dignified housing, and we have a right to affordable housing. And the situation I'm going through now is affecting my family, it's affecting my daughters. So I'm asked to leave, and I'm looking for another place. I went to a real estate agency, and because my credit's not that good, they're charging me 2 deposits, and on top of that, a rent of $7,200 total.
Thank you, gracias.
Thank you. The next three speakers are Rosa Tornecho, Martha Flores, and Yvonne Umana. Rosa Tornecho. Good evening.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Rosa Charneco, vivo en la 148, 48, 88 Avenida. El landlord de nosotros es Sara. Estamos cansados con los hostigamientos de Sara porque los está aumentando demasiada la renta, los NCI. Nosotros no pagábamos electricidad por 20 años y hoy que llegaron ellos comenzamos a pagar electricidad y más de eso los están cobrando aire acondicionados, $60 por cada aire, invierno y verano.
Rosa Cherneco. Good evening, my name is Rosa Cherneco. I believe I got her address right, I might not, but on 148th Avenue, I believe. My landlord is Zara, and we're frankly tired of the harassment that we suffer under them. They charge rents that are far too high. On top of that, they charge us for MCIs. For 20 years in my apartment, I didn't have to pay the light bill, and suddenly they came in and they started charging not only the light bill, but $60 additionally for AC during the winter and the summer months.
¿Los parece bien injusto eso? Que los esté cobrando solo por montar el aire.
y que los cobre invierno y verano. El verano está bien, lo podríamos pagar, pero el invierno, nadie usa aire acondicionado en el invierno. Es injusto lo que están haciendo con los tenas.
This seems really unfair to me. As I said, they're charging us for AC, not only in the summer months, but winter as well. It's fine, we'd be willing to pay during the summer, but no one uses the AC during the winter months.
También el landlord siempre los está hostigando. Mi persona, le mando la renta siempre el día 28 de cada mes, para que ya el día primero o lo más tardar el 3 la haya cobrado. Y él siempre me está cobrando $25 todos los meses, porque dice que yo la mando tarde. Es injusto eso.
Again, this is unfair. The landlord is constantly harassing us. I pay my rent on time. In fact, I send out my check every month on the 28th so that it's received on the 1st or the very latest by the 3rd. But every single month he charges me a $25 late fee. I feel this is unfair.
También él hace 3 años cambió las llaves y yo no tengo llave. Y él se niega a darme las llaves de la entrada del edificio porque no le di la cuenta de mi banco. Eso fue el coraje de él y me ha negado las llaves. No tengo llave. Cada vez que yo quiero entrar al edificio, tengo que tocarle a las amistades que tengo, porque ya me conocen mucha gente. Vivo por 23 años en el mismo edificio.
Also, 3 years ago, he changed the locks on the front door, but I never got my key. And this is because he was trying to get back to me because I wouldn't give him my account information. So I don't have a key, and fortunately I've lived in my building 28 years and I have friends, but I have to rely on knocking on their windows and asking them to let me in.
Y les pido a ustedes, honorables personas, que intercedan ante nosotros los inquilinos, porque ya no podemos pagar más renta. Que no suban la renta, por favor. Es demasiado lo que están subiendo. Los está subiendo por cada cuarto $15 y pone hasta la cocina por cuarto. Es injusto. Ya basta con todas las injusticias que está haciendo ese señor Sara.
Please, let's get the interpretation, please.
Yes.
We need to hear the interpretation.
So I ask that you, honorable members of the board, that you intervene on behalf of tenants, because we just can't keep paying rent increases. The rents are too high. My landlord, he's charging $15 additionally for each room, and he even counts the kitchen as a room. Enough is enough with the injustices perpetrated by this man, Sarah.
Thank you.